Good night, everybody. Just here doing some overtime. I got this 2002 Ford E150, Ford Econoline E150 with the 4.2 engine. Customer was complaining that the car misfired under acceleration at about 13 to 1500 RPM, right? So he brought it to me. I scanned it for codes, look for the obvious shit, and nothing, no code set. I could feel the misfires, and looking at my scan tool data, I could see that the misfire was coming from cylinder 3 and cylinder 5. So I looked at the spark plugs, the wires, and they look wore out, but not enough to where I would say that was causing the misfire. So I kept looking and kept looking, did my research about the systems and crap, because I don't work on Fords very often. I guess, as you guys know, I'm a GM tech. Anyway, once I started doing some reading on All Data and Mitchell, I started looking into the EGR system. So in this particular models, the EGR goes into the center of the intake, that right here. So it starts right there and it runs all the way down to the back over here, and each port right here, it's an intake port, has a little port in there like that one, that when the EGR opens, it redistributes the exhaust gases evenly into each cylinder, whichever cylinder is going into the intake stroke. It sends gas that to that cylinder. Anyway, on this particular one, what happens is that the stupid ports, those little EGR ports, they plug up. So you guys can see that one's plugged up. That one back there is also plugged up. This guy is also plugged up. That's partially plugged. And this one is also partially plugged. I don't know if you guys can see that. So anyway, what happens is when the EGR opens, instead of redistributing those gases evenly across all 6 cylinders, it sends it to the ports that are open. And that causes obviously, it overcomes the air-fuel mixture, causing the cylinder to misfire. The best way to test this is to unplug the EGR valve, unplug the vacuum port going to the EGR, obviously, and go drive it. And if the misfires go away, then you have to remove the plenum, that shell, and then the lower, the lower plenum, and clean those orifices. That'll get rid of the misfires. You can drive the car without the EGR, right? It'll still function properly, but you will have a check engine light, obviously. And the reason for which this wasn't setting any EGR codes is because the EGR is still working properly. It's obviously sending the gases into the combustion chamber, but it's causing it to misfire because there's so much exhaust in the cylinders, obviously. And so anyway, just wanted to share this with you guys because it might be something difficult to diagnose, especially if you're working on your own cars. Obviously, if you take it to a shop, I'm sure they'll know what it is right away, especially if they have the experience. Personally, I do not have very much experience on Fords. I worked at Ford before for about 2 years, but never got into these older models. So this applies for to the F150s with the 4.2, obviously the Econolines with the 4.2, and I think there are a couple more others that use a 3.8 engine, Windstar, and some other ones that have the same setup. It also applies for those. So if you're fighting one of this, go straight to the EGR. Well, obviously do your checks. In my case, I did a compression test and everything was 180. So 180 psi. So that told me the mechanical portion of the engine was good. So yeah, I hope it can help somebody As I said, I've seen threads online saying that they have replaced wires, plugs, coil, injectors, and people don't know what to do anymore. So this is it right here. Make sure you clean your EGR ports, and you should be good to go. All right, good night, y'all.